Let's take a look at the calendar functionality in JobPro. The calendar button is available down the bottom right of every screen, including the data entry and list screens throughout the system. So on the calendar screen, we've got multiple options. We can view tabs for resources, jobs, stages, tasks, time logs, and communications for any given day, week, or month. And on every screen as well in the calendar, we can filter out by things like a job number or statuses of jobs. So let's start with the resources section. Now, a resource in JobPro can either be a contact, like an employee, an asset, like a product or a tool, or something that is tracked by serial numbers and can be used for renting out on jobs or using as loan on jobs. And also a resource can be a location, like an office or a studio, for example. So looking at the day view for contacts, on the day view, what we can do on the left hand side, we can select multiple contacts to view, so we can see that their availability on the right hand side for that particular day, and if we can then assign them to either jobs or tasks. So selecting contacts, we can click on one at a time, and we're viewing them side by side over on the right, or we can also add all above. So that will select multiple contacts here. Now we could also filter out by any type of a contact, not just employees. And we can use the filter here also to filter by name. So for example here we've selected all the individuals, and we can see any individuals that are either booked in on jobs or tasks. In other words, they're booked in as resources for this particular day. And we have the same functionality if we look at the Assets tab, where we select multiple assets, and we can see their availability and if they've been booked in on jobs for this particular day. And also the same with locations. We can select multiple locations and view again their availability, like an office or a studio that you might want to rent out, or meeting rooms, for example. Okay, so let's have a look then at the week view. Well, actually, just before we go to the week view, you'll notice that on the day view we can move around the actual resource here, so we can click on it and drag it up or down to a different time slot in that day, or we can extend the actual duration of that resource booking, which is either on a task or on a job. In this case, this resource booking is linked to a task, and this resource booking here is linked to a job. And if you want to view the task or view the job, you can just double click on the header. So that'll bring us straight in to view that resource details, and from here we can then view the job or task that's linked to this resource. We can also specify the billable details for that booking. In this case, it's a booking on a job and a task, where the task is linked to the job. We can also then click into this area and hold the mouse down and drag up and down within the calendar. So you can do that on every tab. So now let's have a look at the week view. So the week view is slightly different. So we clear all, and we then just select a couple of contacts here. So the week view then, we're looking at 7 days normally, but you can actually change to display a different amount of days in this screen. So let's say if we're on a bigger monitor, we could open up the size of the JobPro window and then maybe set it to 30 days. So this is a small monitor, and 30 days is going to be quite small, although it's still usable, where you can drag around a task or a resource linked to a task or a job. So we just put that back to 7 days. So we can move around the actual resource booking if we want to move it on, extend the duration, or just double click on it to view that resource. We can also specify for the week view to start on a Monday, or alternatively by unclicking that it'll start on the day of the current day, or the date that we've specified up in the calendar icon here. So if we have a look at the month view, this gives us a month calendar for, in this case, the Resources Contacts tab. And if you want to click on any of these or hover over to give you more information, just double click will bring you into the resource record itself, and from there you can then view the task in this case. So let's click on View Task, and that brings us into the actual task record that we were looking at on that resource screen in the calendar. So the month view is available on all the tabs as well. So similar functionality for the day, week and month are available for all the other tabs as well. So let's have a quick look at jobs. If we look at the day view, so in here we can see any jobs that are occurring today, and we can filter out by a person responsible. You can also have an access privilege, so you can specify whether somebody can change the responsible on a particular calendar. So in other words, if an administrator wants to be able to see views of other users' calendars, they can do so from here. And you can also filter out by the status of a job as well. So the week view then, again we've got a week view here that we can change how many days we want to look at. And we can click on an item or on a job to view that job. So now we're brought straight into the job screen. And the same with the month view. If we click on a job in here, and it'll bring us into the jobs module. So the other tabs are quite similar in relation to the day, week and month view. We've got the same functionality for stages and for tasks. The tasks day view is slightly different, where you've got a split screen. The first side is for any tasks that have a time on them, and we can then move those up and down for a different time slot during that day. And then all day tasks will appear on the right hand side, specific to the person responsible and any other filters that you've set on that screen. So if we have a look at the week view for the task tab, again we've got sort of dynamic functionality where we can drag around tasks in here, put them on different days and change their duration. Next, if we have a look at the time log tab. Now on the time log day view screen, we can actually create time logs here and edit them at the same time. So this is similar functionality to the time log tab on the quick view screen, but it gives you a good idea for any given day, week or month, your various time logs for that time period. And also for an administrator that might need to log time for multiple employees, they can do so from this screen, where they can select a responsible, then they can create the time logs for that day, and then they can go and change the filter to be a different person, and then create those time logs for that person here. The comms tab in the calendar basically displays any communications for a particular day, week or month, again filtering out by the person responsible, or you can also filter out by the type of communications, like a message, email, letter, faxes, notes, phone calls and SMS messages. So we can also then click on the week view for communications and the month view for communications. And if you click on any communication here, it'll bring you directly into the comms module. So here we can see we're in the comms module looking at a specific message. So that covers the calendar functionality in JobPro. There are some settings in setup worth looking at. So let's go into Home, into Setup, and then click on the Calendar and Gantt tab under the General section. So in here we can specify that on the calendar that the first day of the week is a specific day, that the calendar work week are set to certain days. So on the calendar then you've got a relevant color showing your work week. And also on initial opening of the calendar you can set it to view a certain screen and a certain tab. So the task screen with the week view, for example. Now you can also set this at the employee level in the employees record as well. Then you can specify how many days to display as a default on the week view. So for example, if you did have a larger screen and you normally wanted to view maybe 30 or 20 days on what we call the week view, but is really more than just a week view, well then you can set that here. You can also set your work hours in here as well, so that visually on screen it's more obvious using color what the work hours are for any particular day as well. So let's go back into tasks on the calendar screen. So let's say for example we want to create a task in here. You can select on the screen in the time slot and drag down, and then we'll say sample task. Now that task will have been created in the task module linked to the person that's set on the responsible for the filter. So if you click on the task then, it'll bring us straight into that task, and it'll have already set the start time and end time. We can also add additional context in here and set up alerts or reminders for this task. Further information in relation to the task module and alerts can be found in other video tutorials. Also on any of the particular tabs we can click on a header on the week view. So if we click on that particular day, we're brought to that day. Or if we want to click on the month view, we can click on a date here and we're brought into that day as well. So that covers the functionality in the calendar screen.